On the 14th between the 2 evenings is when the lamb is killed. So I'm going to draw a clock because time is very, very important. We have 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Kill the lamb between the 2 evenings. To kill between the 2 evenings would be about 3 o'clock is when the father said, okay, then it's done. The Mashiyach or the lamb, put it this way, let's go. We only want to deal with Genesis. Exodus. We're not going to go into the Messianic, because that's prophetic shadow pictures. This is, like I said last week, this is an even, and when the clock continues to tick, we're now in the evening. And when the sun falls completely below the horizon, we're now into a new day, which is now starts at night. This is my argument. The 14th between the 2 evenings is when the lamb is killed. The 15th nighttime, the Father is saying that this is a memorial or a day. He's calling the day, or he's calling the night a day. It's part of the whole 24-hour process. Because the Father said now was that for this night, the messengers of Yahuah is going to now fly over the houses of Israel and is going to kill all the firstborns of Egypt. This is going to happen now at night. This is 12 o'clock at night. So what happens now is that, let's say hypothetically, the sun went down. So at 6 o'clock, Israel is eating the lamb. It's not nighttime. So they're eating the lamb, let's say 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. It is now 12 o'clock noon. All of a sudden now, you got the staff in your hand, you're girded up and everything like that. We all in the house, we having a good time. All of a sudden now, you hear somebody screaming. But remember the promise. Moses already gave the instructions what was going to happen now at 12 o'clock. He will start killing all of the firstborns of Egypt. Then what happens now, but the Father's calling all of this now, for argument's sake, a 24-hour span that happened at night. And what happens now is that about 3 o'clock now in the morning, we have now Pharaoh. Read the story now, because we'll be here all day. Read the story. Pharaoh now calls for Aaron and Moses now and said, listen, you know what? You and the children of Israel, get up out of here. You got to go. All right? The 10 plagues, you killed the firstborn son of a Pharaoh. A Pharaoh. This is a dynasty. You killed my lineage. I have nothing left now. I'm a dead man. There's nothing else now that's proceeding from me. And so he said, listen, get up and go. And so what happens now is that I use the word, but with understanding. So now, this happened prior to that. So Israel now leaves in hindsight. When we look up the word hindsight, now we're talking about the daylight portion of the day. The daylight portion where Israel left, because remember, we're not going to leave as a thief in the night. They left in hindsight during the daylight portion, because Scripture tells us now that Israel was not supposed to now have any lamb, carrying it over until the morning. The instructions were for them to burn it. So they were to eat in haste, because Israel now was going to be leaving out in the morning as prescribed by Moses when he spoke with the Father. Okay, I'm going to speed it up. Now, if there's any questions, we go back to a little bit later. Leviticus 23:32. Leviticus 23:22. We have one more scripture. We're done. Oh, excuse me. We have 2 more scriptures. Leviticus 23:32. If we can get Shabbat to read that, and if we get Solomon to do Nehemiah, the 13th chapter, verses 19 to 22. So Solomon, if you can do 13th chapter, verses 19 to 22, and if we get Shabbat to do 23:32 in the book of Leviticus.
Okay. Leviticus, chapter 23, verse 32. It shall be unto you a Shabbat of rest And ye shall afflict your souls in the 9th day of the month at evening, from evening unto evening shall ye celebrate your Shabbat.
Okay, it shall be unto you a Shabbat of rest, and you shall afflict your souls in the 9th day. Okay, of the month at even. When you look at the word even, we have the Strong's number 6153. Just get that right quick, and we will be done. When we're supposed to do this, are we going to do this? Okay, I'll get back to that one here. So we have Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23, 32. The word even means evening, night, sunset, evening, sunset, night. So if I was to read this, it shall be unto you a Shabbat of rest, and you shall afflict your souls at the night, on the 9th day of the month at even. And the word even is the Hebrew word areb, which means evening, night, or sunset. So if we have the 9th at evening, and based upon the definition, when you go into the Hebrew lexicon, when you have the 9th at evening, which means sunset, and when the sun sets, you're now at the 10th, nighttime. And so my question is to my super scholar, Leah, I have a question. It's going to take a super scholar. No, Leah. No, you're Leah. Yeah, Leah. No, but you said, yeah, you're Leah. Yeah, because I need a super scholar. Now, the Father says, Kasarabah, you're unclean for 7 days. 7 days, all right? Should I understand that to be, let's say now that the Father's only dealing with the daytime portion, just the daytime portion. Kasarabah, you're unclean for 7 days. Should I leave the camp during the night and then come back during the day? Or should I be unclean both night and day? It would be both night and day. If I'm unclean and I'm not supposed to be within inside of a congregation because I can contaminate the whole congregation. Remember there was a time when there was a sister that the whole camp was being penalized because a woman had stole an idol or something. And the people were dying inside of the camp and they needed to find out what the heck was going on. And so what I'm trying to share now is that a penalty or a crime, if the Father says don't do X, Y, and Z, and you do it anyway, you can affect the whole congregation. So my argument is this. If I'm not clean for 7 days, and I'm only going to observe the daytime portion, but you see my behind up in the congregation at night, you're like, it's all about, you got to get the heck up out of here, because you're going to contaminate the whole congregation, and I don't want my family dying and getting sick because of you. Evening to evening, I see you in 7 days, both night and day. I ain't going for it. So you're absolutely right. But what I'm just trying to get now is that it has to make sense. You know, it has to make sense. You know, you release, you have a relationship with your Isha, you're clean from evening to evening. Not just the daytime portion. I mean, I don't get it. It has to make sense. All right, I don't know, bro. Maybe just me. I don't know. Nehemiah, the 13th chapter, verse 19 to 22, and I'm done. And done with the whole topic. Something else, because I don't get it. I do get it where you sleep at night. The book of Nehemiah, the 13th chapter, verses 19 to 22. Yes, please. And we'll be done.
And it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, I commanded...
Before the Sabbath?
Yes.
It became...
No, Jerusalem began to be dark before the Shabbat.
Okay, so what I'm saying, the Shabbat is about to come in. So if the Shabbat is about to come in, what is about to happen?
It's about to be dark.
Okay, I just want to make sure, maybe I'm missing something. All right.
I commanded that the gates should be shut and charged that they should not be opened till after Shabbat. And some of my servants set I at the gates that there should no burden be brought in on the Sabbath, on the Shabbat day.
Okay, the Shabbat day. So we have a process where the sun is going down and we have the word day. What's happening is this. Because of our Western way of looking at things, where you automatically look at or visualize day as daylight. That's all you can see and understand because of the 30, 40, 50, 60 years of living here in America. So day only means light. But if you was to look at it now, even from an artist's perspective, the best canvas to work on is a dark canvas. And to let you know that darkness is supreme and everything starts in darkness, we talked about gross darkness last week. Now watch this. If you was to remove the sun, the earth goes back into its original state. If you should take away the sun, the moon, and the stars, you go back to the beginning, which is darkness. Unless I'm missing something. If the Father created the luminaries, the sun, the moon, and the stars, if they emit light, what was actually then illuminating, or what was the state of existence before the sun, the moon, and the stars? It would have to be darkness. The Father says, I dwell in deep darkness. And so when the Father says that I am light, we have to also understand what that means, because now we're talking about the 7 basic prisms of light. And so we're not talking, and you begin to look at that, we'll go into it a little bit later, when you start to look at now the different shades and colors now of a rainbow. So we talk about prisms. It's almost like if, I'll pray for nothing like this ever happens. I remember one time, not careful, stood too far behind, stood too close actually to a guy that was swinging the baseball bat, playing baseball. And it slipped out of his hands, and it hit me in the head, and it almost knocked me out. But I saw stars, and you begin to see lights. It's like a prism. I mean, it's different from what we see here. It's like another realm or a dimension. So for our pea brains to be able to understand what's going on, we have basically now the sun, the moon, and the stars. So when you begin to talk about the light of the Father, or when Moshe now goes up to the top of the mount, and he now becomes an enlightened being, this is something totally different, where you're now no longer who you are now. When Adam and his Isha were in the garden, they were enlightened beings. They didn't look like you and I. When we were kicked out of the garden now, we now look the way that we look. We don't have that aura of that glow about ourselves anymore. Well, I'm not going to say we don't have it, but not the way that it was originally placed upon Adam and his Isha. We also see it now with the Mashiyach, when he went up, I think he took James and Peter to the top of the mountain, and he also transfigured himself. And whenever you get to a point now where, again, when you're in the presence of the Father, you are now an enlightened being. So it talks about in Scripture where we're not going to need the sun and the stars anymore. Not necessarily saying that we're not going to need the sun and the stars, but what's going to be now actually illuminating the people now is going to actually be the Mashiyach, the Father, because you're now an enlightened being, and the city is going to be enlightened by the people that's going to actually be inside of New Jerusalem. So that's all you had? Okay, but read. So I know I got off a little bit. Because now you start to get into atoms and the breakdowns of atoms, when you start to get into the neutrons and the protons, and those things also emit light and energy. And so you're doing school, y'all doing school, so y'all know more about the atoms and the cells and how it emits light and everything like that. So you're more familiar with that than I am. So just finish that off and we'll be done.
So the merchants and the sellers of all kind of ware lodged without Jerusalem once or twice. Then I testified against them and said unto them, Why lodge ye about the wall? If ye do so again, I will lay hands on you. For that time forth came they no more on the Shabbat. And I commanded the Levites that they should cleanse themselves, and that they should come and keep the gates to sanctify the Shabbat day. Remember me, O my Elohim, concerning this also, and spare me according to the greatness of thy mercy.
Hallelujah. And another way that they kept time too now is that they was able to reckon this by the way that the shadows fell on the gates of Jerusalem. A lot of times you might see like some hieroglyphics and some engravings on ancient walls and things like that. You ever seen, there was one Egyptian deity, it looked like he had a watch on. You ever see that? He looked like he had a watch on, but they were using sundials. You know, we did use sundials and stone hinges and everything like that to be able to tell time. So I just wanted to share that, and that's all I have today, is because no more on morning, evening, day, and stuff like that. If you wanted to do whatever this thing you want to do, more power to you. I just don't see how, if the first instructions are, the Father's telling you about the creation, evening and morning, evening to morning, and evening to evening, you know, acknowledging the morning. I don't know what else to do outside of that. Daniel, in the book of Daniel, 8th chapter verse 8, Daniel 8th chapter verse 13, and Daniel the 8th chapter verse 24, he even told Daniel how to count the 2,300 days. He told him to count the 2,300 days, evening to morning, evening to morning. And he's telling you, just like if Ezekiel, if the Father is telling you, listen, there's a prophecy that's about to be fulfilled. And I want you to count the days to the fulfillment of the prophecy for 2,300 days. And this is how I want you to do it. I want you to do it from evening to evening. That way you'll come up with an exact count. And I believe that counting is very important because if your brother, he's a pilot, let's say he wants to pursue his career and he's an airline, TWA, whatever like that, one of the big airlines. And if that plane is going to be at Georgia Airport at 12 o'clock, and your ticket says that, listen, you know what, you need to be boarding this plane at 12:30, I don't think it would be a good idea for you to get up at 1 o'clock or 1:30 and try to board the plane. I think your son or your brothers will be gone already. So keeping the appointed times is going to be very important. If your ticket says 1 o'clock, I think you should be at 1 o'clock, or even 12 o'clock. Train ticket, whatever. Make sure that you're on time. And we know our people when they're not on time. This is the reason why I've seen so many times before, people running down the aisle and stuff like that, and bumping into people. So we're always late to our own funerals. Any questions, anything I might have missed, whatever, let's talk about it. Yes, sir.
I was going to say that the thing that's going through my head as you're reading this stuff, of course I still don't have it, so we're ready to sit down and talk about it some more. It's not that I don't agree or anything, I just don't. It's hard to get out of what our concept is of day here and what we've been doing for the last 50-some years to, well, I'm saying us and me, to what you're trying to teach us. But I think it's extremely important because I believe that when Yahuah brings us back out into the desert, he's going to be telling us stuff like this again. Like Passover and like some of those other things. And when he tells us it's time to move or whatever, we better have the right time.
Right.
or we're going to be in trouble. So I think it's extremely important for us to get this correct.
Absolutely. And let me just say this too now is that we're rehearsing the righteous acts. And so when we talk about, let's say, the barley season, because there are a lot of different dates, I would never get into an argument if a brother is saying, listen, you know what, based upon my calculations, I have April the 4th. I might have April the 5th, or another brother might have April the 6th. The best that I can do for now is that we're in the barley season. You know what I mean? I'm not going to get into any, I just can't. Because if someone was to ask me, and I'm going to be as truthful, as honest with you as possible, Kasalabar, can you lay your head on the chopping block and prove to us beyond a shadow of a doubt that Pesach is definitely April the 4th? I couldn't do that. I can explain to you in Scripture between the two evenings. But, because in the book of Daniel, I believe it's the 9th chapter, it even talks about how the adversary now has changed times and seasons. He has done this. Excuse me, Daniel, the 7th chapter, he has done these things. The adversary is trying to buy time. He's trying to confuse us. There was a Julian calendar at one time. There was times when there was only, I think it was like 8 or 9 months in a year. They just done everything backwards. I mean, they just changed everything. There's a Gregorian calendar. There's a Dandorian calendar. I find it interesting in Exodus the 12th chapter, when Moses now was a scholar, he learned all the ways of Egypt. And the Father is telling Moses in Exodus the 12th chapter, Moses, this now is the beginning of the year. As if Moses didn't know. He was a scholar. And so there's a difference in the calendar between the way that the Egyptians are doing it and the way that the Hebrews are doing it. They did their calendar based upon the overflooding of the Nile. And this happened now in June. It usually happens in June when the Nile overflows its banks. And they say now, when the water now resides, what happens now is that this now, like their explanation of a rebirth. Because as we already know, when there's a flood, it being that there's so many minerals and things like that inside of water, when it now goes back to its original banks, that it leaves like deposits of minerals and stuff like that in the soil. And so things begin to bloom and grow again because of all of the minerals in water. Because it tells us in the book of Genesis, the 1st chapter, that there was a flood upon the face of the earth. And the Father divided the waters, and so we had the rivers and the ponds and everything like that. And I do understand that concept. But according to Scripture, that we didn't do it based upon the overflooding of the Nile. So a short story, I would say, listen, we're in the season with Passover. We're in the season with Shavuot. We're in the season with the ingathering. That's about the best that I can do. I can never say that it's 100% correct. Yeah, I just couldn't do it. There's some guys, and I'm not mad at them. There's some guys saying, listen, this is it. Well, power to you. I hear you. But I'm not going to go that route. Oh, okay. We good?
Not forgetting about one question. It's not about the day. It was about what you referenced about the bar mitzvah and the bat mitzvah.
Right.
I wanted to ask, is that you saying that's the bar mitzvah? Is that what you're saying a male child is becoming a man?
This is traditionally what happens. What I hear, but I haven't found a scripture where it says that, for example, I was trying to share that my grandmother was telling me that at 12 years old, you're now a man. Right, exactly. Because what happened now is they said that you're 12, and now the word teen, T-E-E-N, oh, now I'm a teenager, and I can do whatever it is that I want to do, and I have to listen to mommy and daddy no more. I'm grown. I'm a teenager. And so they said 12 was a pivotal point because at 13, and some people do it at 13, that's when they say you're now a man.
Because the reason why I'm asking is because I always thought that at the age of 20 was when a young man would be considered a man, because that's when he was able to go to war.
War, exactly.
So that's why I thought the bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah, I thought that was for Judaism, and I was was at the age of 20. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strong possibility because even marital ages, we even have a king. I think it was during the time of Jezebel when she thought she had killed up all of the servants, and they had found one, and this boy, he was like 8 years old, but he was still under the tutorship of his mother. He was ruling as king at 8 years old. And we find out a lot in the scriptures where young boys are actually reigning as kings. So age has a lot to do with it. Yeah, it was 19 and under were able to make it into the promised land. 19 and under died in the wilderness. Going to war at 19, and I agree with you. If you're able to go to war and protect and cover the nation, then you should be able to have a Yahusha. Because if you can defend a nation, you can defend your household.
Right.
And so it's the whole thing. So I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay.
But the way that they were doing it with the bar mitzvah and the bat mitzvah is that the person, once they was at that age, they knew right from wrong. And this is the reason why you go to the book of Deborah, the 6th chapter, that should now have come into play where the person or the child knows now, again, how to do right from wrong. Because you teach the child when he gets up, when he lays down, you teach about Torah. So now they should be responsible. This is the way that they was doing it. So there's a lot of Jewish stuff. So, yeah, so you're right. I mean, so we good? Okay, hallelujah. We're going to bullish so far. So you had some announcements?
We didn't have any new announcements, just the same feast days, but I sent a text out to everyone what are the remaining feast days for the year.
Okay.
Not-
And what about the fees? We have that date available to actually tabernacle at Stone Mountain.
I have all that information.
Okay, hallelujah. All right, Mr. Cobb, that's going to be about it for today's services. Your donations are gladly appreciated, and keep the congregation running. And do we need plates, forks, knives,